Uh, oh my God, there's a lot of you already. Okay. So we're gonna wait for Kofi Thomas to come, and thank you everybody for joining. Thank you to the Solutions Project for first of all for doing this, for being one of the biggest champions for climate activism and climate justice, and now very much shining the light on racial justice is very much climate justice, and we are going to talk about all of that and a lot of incredible but very how would you say it, unfortunate statistics that I've learned about that I'm going to share with you guys. It's pretty awful, to say the least. So we're going to talk about all that, but then we are most importantly going to talk about all of the good that is happening and people like Kofi Thomas and what they're doing for their community. And he's an amazing guy, and I'm so excited for you guys to meet him. Let's see if he is here. There he is. All right, Kofi, I sent you the request. Thank you to everybody that's tuning in. Hello.
What's up? Hey, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you perfectly. Can you hear me?
Yes. Good to see you. Hello, compadre. How you doing?
I'm so good, man. Pleasure to digitally meet you, man.
This is cool. This is very cool.
First and foremost, thank you for everything you're doing for your community, and you specifically are extremely hands-on and literally boots on the ground. And I would just love for everyone to hear your story. I did my research on you, and it's pretty fascinating. So for those that may have not heard of what you're doing, please tell the world the amazing stuff that you're doing in your community.
Sure. Well, first of all, much gratitude to you. Thank you for having me. I did my research on you as well. So a big shout out to you and using your
Thanks, man.
voice and just being like a star out there. Appreciate you 100%. Uh, Hello to everybody out there who does not know me. I'm a pretty chill, quiet guy. My name is Kofi Thomas. I am an urban farmer here in Brooklyn, New York. My story is, I think, just that of, I think a lot of us who kind of stumbled upon, the world around us and kind of woke up to the importance of the environment, the importance for me in particular of community and community gardens. My story has a bit of a funny beginning. So I'm like a writer, comedian here in New York. I was throwing a show in my house, and I needed to borrow some fold-out chairs. So I went across the street to this local garden called The People's Garden, run by a wonderful, crazy old Puerto Rican man named Hernan Pagan. I said, "Hey, can I borrow some chairs? I'll pay you." He was like, "Don't be crazy. Just take them. Just bring them back whenever you want." And I was like, "Oh, wow, like that's really cool of you. Can I do something to, kind of pay it forward? Do you need help around here?" And at the time, they were looking to go buy some lumber to rebuild their dance floor because it's a big party garden, like with a lot of live music. So I was like, "Oh, hey, I happen to have access to a moving truck on some days. I can maybe help you out. Give me a call." That Friday, he calls me. I pick him up. We go grab lumber. And from there, it was just like, like this love started. Where like we came back with the lumber, and neighbors who I had never met started coming out of their houses to help us unload. People were bringing out tools and helping to build. People started up the barbecue grill, start to cook. And I got to witness firsthand how much this garden space, this green space meant to meant to this block. So from there, it really kind of sparks my curiosity and my love for this green space as a place that really brought people together. So from there, I'm a pretty, I want to say persistent person. So I said,
Yeah.
"Hey, what else can I help with?" And he said, "Oh, well, we've always wanted to grow food out here. Because at the time we had mostly fruit trees and flowers." And I said, "Oh, no problem. I would love to learn how to grow. Like, I really want to know how to grow food anyway. Let me go online, find what other city agencies, local gardens have the supplies and knowledge to grow food, I started reaching out, sending out emails, making phone calls, and then we built our first ever like raised beds in that garden. And then I came back and he was like, "What else?" I was like, "Well, what else do you want?" He was like, "Well, we want clean energy." I was like, "Okay, let's figure out solar power." So we got solar panels in there.
Yeah.
And then after I think about a year of him just saying his his ideas and me taking off on him, he said, "Hey, there's a garden around the corner that used to be a garden, but is now used as a trash dump. You should go take a look at it." So I went around the corner, and there was this giant, piece of land that had been used as a dumping ground. So some demolition company was dumping like building materials and waste out there. So I asked the neighbors on that street, I said, "Hey, can you all give me some background, some history on this land?" And they said that they don't know much. They know that it was at one point a garden, but now they think it's private, but nobody really had a lot of information on it. And that sent me down this other journey of trying to find out who owned the land, how we could uh, clean it up and really rejuvenate it, make it a garden again for the community. And that space is what is now the Good Life Garden, 13,000 square foot educational and empowerment garden in Brooklyn.
In Bushwick, right?
In Bushwick, yeah, right in Bushwick.
Man, I wish I knew about this. I spent a little bit of time in Bushwick when I lived in New York, and
Oh yeah.
that's definitely going to be one of my first pit stops when I come back to New York.
Oh, come through. We got live music. We got
It sounds
okra. We got
amazing.
everything. All right.
It sounds amazing, and I saw that you feed your community with amazing organic produce, fruits and vegetables. You also give out seeds and sort of encourage people to learn more about growing food, and if they can, they could grow their own food. And I forgot the number amount of how many people how many tons of food you think you have given out. That's a pretty unbelievable number.
Yeah, so we've got some fun numbers, some fun metrics. I think to date we've given out over 14 tons of fresh organic produce,
Oh,
which is phenomenal. Um, and yeah, thank you for bringing that up because I also wanted to say that like a lot of the numbers that I'm personally really proud of is also we compost a lot. We partner with this other garden called BK Roth that is phenomenal. They hire local youth to go around and collect food waste.
wow.
And with them, we have saved, I think it was up to date, 12 tons of waste from going to landfills. So
Oh
that
my
was really
god, man.
wild. And then, yeah, for me too, like seeing, really like seeing people learning how to grow for me is a major, major thing. So we've helped to start like numerous gardens around our community on rooftops and backyards and handing out free resources because at least in my kind of little imagination, like if we can create a lot of micro gardeners, we can get this, this kind of mini agro system going on, and then we're all going to be a lot healthier, a lot better.
Exactly, and if I'm not mistaken, the area that you're in is it's technically considered a food desert, right?
Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah, we're considered a food desert, food apartheid, as it's referred to nowadays, because a desert is naturally occurring, but our lack of access to food is definitely systemic, and that is where we live in Bushwick. There is a lack of affordable grocery stores. There's a lack of farmland. Most things that people eat, they don't know how it got to their table,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really fascinating because we are actually on land um, that was originally farmland, farmed by indigenous peoples. And then even when like the Dutch came over, the name Bushwick is from Boswick, which means like farmland. So we actually live
Wow.
on farmlands that we don't farm on.
Oh my God.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a
That is
lot of
so
history there.
bizarre. So now
Yeah.
you're sort of leading like a full circle of sort of what the land was intentionally used for, and you're sort of like the new wave of that, bringing it back. And like you said, right now, if I'm not mistaken, there's 3 gardens right in your neighborhood.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so I've got the first, like my garden where I learned, everything. My kind of home is the People's Garden, and that's on one street called Green Avenue. I'll make a little hand map for everybody at home. It's on Green Avenue. Then you take a right turn, and there's Goodwin Place, and
Wow.
there's the Good Life Garden. Then if you take a left on Grove Street, there's Grove Street Garden. So now I've helped to start or rebuild these 3 gardens, and we are uniting them and uniting the gardeners from each garden to use these 3 green spaces as a vehicle to, really have a collaboration between these blocks and get people to talk to each other, get them to share resources, get them to share information, fight for the environment, etc. But to really get a stronger and bigger collective going.
Wow, man, this is so fascinating. Since it is, very much Climate Week, and what would you say was your initial, I guess, spark of inspiration, or I guess awareness of like what's going on with the climate, and especially New York and major cities, they're getting hit hard by climate change. Was there like a specific moment or an event that happened that sort of sparked your I guess passion for this?
Um, I think for yeah, there's been a few. I've had some really good conversational people. I think one that sticks out in my mind, and I like you said, like there's like kind of something kind of sparks that passion. For me, I was in a community board meeting back in 2017 when I was first starting to clean the garden and just talking to people on the board about it and trying to get some advice, some guidance. And the one person on the board, she's a doctor, and she said that she was very excited about the green space because we need cleaner air in Bushwick, and that's something I hadn't thought about before. And then she showed me the statistics that Bushwick ranks as one of the lowest communities in New York for childhood asthma.
Yeah.
And I had really bad asthma as a kid, so for me, like I didn't even think about the fact that there are decisions being made uh, that are negatively affecting the air that we breathe every day. And some of these decisions are being made obviously in rooms without us. But for example, like here in Bushwick, a lot of the garbage trucks get routed through Bushwick or past Bushwick. And so our youth are inhaling, you know, uh, a very toxic amount of carbon emissions. And I just something as like devastating as that, I was like, well, how do we not know about this as a community, that we're not just unlucky, we're not just sick, like there is a systemic when people are passing policies and laws and making decisions that put us at danger, that put our air at danger, put our water at risk. So that's when I think that's the spark for me for climate change, was like, oh, like this is having very severe effects on, and especially on people who can't do anything about it. A lot of times it's like the youth or the elderly who are suffering the brunt of it, and so yeah, that's when it really hit me.
And honestly, I mean, that's a perfect segue because right now we're celebrating Black Climate Week, and literally what you're saying is a direct correlation with a thing called redlining. If
Yeah.
people don't know what that means, please look it up. Quick summaries: putting neighborhoods that are directly in highly polluted areas. And the unfortunate thing is that a lot of those neighborhoods are predominantly Black people. And the other thing, it's literally called housing segregation, and it's very much a thing that's happening in America. And it's things like you were mentioning right now. And A crazy statistic I learned is that Black Americans are 40% more likely to contract asthma than white people, and that's not a random coincidence. It's because of the neighborhoods that they're growing up in, and like you said, these decisions are being made without anybody's opinion or thoughts of the actual people that are living there. So this is a major concern, and it's very much why racial justice is climate justice. There are countless of correlations, and one cannot exist without the other. And this is something crazy that I learned today. This is actually from the Solutions Project. More than half of Black Americans in the United States live in the South, and those areas are going to see the strongest hurricanes and increased flooding from climate change. So again, not a coincidence. And this is really fascinating because the Solutions Project, is a huge company that raises money for climate justice and racial justice. And this is an insane statistic. Of the $471 billion that donors give to nonprofits in 2020, only $25 to $50 million, or 0.5%, went to environmental justice organizations. 0.05%. Can you believe, like,
it's so incredibly frustrating.
And this is the biggest, I guess, concern that the human race is facing. And the fact that it is not getting, first of all, the proper attention and then the proper monetary attention blows my mind. And this is exactly why we're doing stuff like this, is because we need to raise awareness on the highest levels. That
statistic is devastating, and it's
0.05, man.
0.05 out of how many billion?
$471
billion, and 0.05% goes to the environment. It's what's so it's like disheartening is that I don't know what else affects absolutely every person on earth, no matter what your race or belief is. We all need to breathe. We all are part of this world. We all need nature. We're all part of it. We all need to drink water. We're all living, breathing beings. And yet,
climate change does not segregate. That's for sure.
It does not.
Climate change affects every single person. Does not matter where you're from, what your social class is, it really doesn't matter. We're seeing it. We're seeing it every single month, multiple times a month now.
Right?
And the fact that over 50% of Black Americans live in the South. I mean, we literally just saw a snowstorm in Texas.
Right.
I mean,
right.
Come on.
You get to a point where you almost go like, what else do you have to see happen? Like I'm in New York. Like we had, we set a record for rainfall this year, and then a week later reset the record, and people were trapped and drowned in their basements. Like people lost their lives, and it gets to a point where, you almost feel like, well, what else does the world need to see to wake up? And that's when I think you can start to get frustrated. Like my family is from this little island called Dominica in the Caribbean. And when climate change hits, just like you made that point about Black folks in the South, like it hits the Caribbean way harder than it hits other parts of the world. And so what we see is people who are usually Black or brown, who have not had a hand in, we'll say, in causing this climate crisis, but are bearing the brunt of it in a very, inequitable way. And I think that to your point about the donations not being equal, only being 0.05%, man, I don't want to get too philosophical, but I
Yeah.
think there is something about our empathy, about our human nature, where like if we see something that is wrong, that is unjust, like in front of our face, that's like immediate, like an act of violence, then we are likely to react. Like if we see somebody, maybe getting like hit or punched or assaulted, then we are, I think, more likely to speak up. But with climate change, with climate activism, with uh, these disasters, I think it's a type of slow violence
Mm.
that is not as it's not as always easy to see it happening for some people, where you're like, oh, like there's global warming, what's warmer? But if you step back and look at the bigger picture and say that, well, what we're doing to the atmosphere, what we're doing to the quality of air, what we're doing to the water in places like Michigan, it's not that immediate act of violence that we're used to seeing, but it's a very slow violence. You are cutting years off of people's lives. You are putting people in the hospital. We in Black and Brown communities, we have higher rates of heart disease and
Mhm.
hypertension, high blood pressure. All of these things are cutting years off your life and reducing your quality of life. So it's like, yeah, you can punch me in the face now, or you can slowly make my ear worse so that I have asthma and I don't live as long. So I think people need to really like understand this idea of slow violence. And it's not just the one person, but you are violently harming entire communities
And
with
generations.
and generations and the land for generations. Yeah, like this is it's so immense, and it's it's just so severe. I think, yeah, it's such a good question. It's such a good point that you raised, because I often deal with that and think about, how do I get people to act? How do I get them to engage in climate activism? And a big part of it is helping them to understand the real long-term effects of the choices that we make today. And I think another part of it, part of my hope, is to get people to connect more with nature and feel like, don't just act because something might go wrong, but act because you love it. Like, change this now because you are part of everything around you. So yeah, you got me. That's my little rant on that. But man, yeah, that statistic is heavy.
Yeah, it's yeah. I'm trying to stay calm because I could rant about this stuff forever. I think for me personally, the biggest thing that I guess sparked my whole path down this really depressing road is in 2012 Hurricane Sandy. I don't know if you were in New
Oh
York.
yeah. No, I wasn't, but go
We I was living in Staten Island at the time,
on. Oh no.
maybe 2 blocks away from the ocean, and we had this like tiny 1 floor bungalow, and uh, we lost our house was completely submerged underwater within I think 5 minutes, um,
Oh.
and we lost literally everything physical at least, um, and we lost our entire neighborhoods, um, and it was every coastline of New York got hit. And for me, that was sort of my very first initial, like, I guess, spark of what is this? Like, what is a natural disaster? Is it supposed to be happening this often? Is it supposed to be happening in New York? And then, sort of, as I started going down that path, I started learning much more about climate change and global warming and weather patterns, and how it was a completely freak storm. It was literally a perfect storm. It was a full moon, a high tide, and a Category 1 hurricane. Um, so yeah, so that was my first initial thing of like, I think when you see it, and this is something I don't wish upon anybody, is to see their, I guess, community and their neighborhood completely underwater. It really does something to you, and it's one of the most devastating things you could see, and to truly see the power of Mother Nature and what happens when the planet is pissed off. Um, she is very scary, and and it's our fault. You know,
Yeah.
it's not the planet. The planet would love to live in harmonious peace if it could. But for me, that was sort of the first time where I was like, oh, something's happening here. And that was in 2012, so we were well into mass information about climate change and global warming, and it wasn't an opinion anymore or a debate. And then I saw Before the Flood, which is Leonardo DiCaprio's film on National Geographic, and I urge everyone to watch it. Please prepare a box of Kleenex, because it's really, really sad, and it's the sad truth of what's going on in the world. And that came out in 2016, and everything that the scientists were saying in this documentary has completely panned out 6 years later, like almost on the dot. And it comes back to just believing in science, and listening to the statistics, and listening to the trajectory of what's happening, and they haven't been wrong yet. So I don't think they will be. And luckily now we have, I guess, a ticking time clock. I think it's around 9 years now, where we have to change everything before it's irreparable. So I hope that sort of urgency will wake people up. And I think the biggest thing is, me and you could do everything in our power, like literally everything in our power, to try to make a change. But it's not until the massive companies and the people in power are willing to make the change, where we'll see global change for good. And I think people like you and I, if we multiply that throughout the whole planet, and we urge the power makers to do something, and we urge lawmakers to do something, and we continue that pressure, which has been happening. There are some bright sides to this. The fact that we have a president who has made climate change a top priority, that's a small victory. So the more pressure we add, the more urgency that we add on the lawmakers, that's when we'll see like true global change. And we just have to keep doing what we're doing. And I truly applaud and cannot thank people like you enough, because you are physically and on the ground doing things for your community. And it's amazing. And I cannot wait to visit you and shake your hand and say thank you, and definitely try your delicious vegetables, because that gets me very excited, man.
I appreciate that, and you're definitely have the open invite for whenever you want to come by. But I do want to applaud you for sure, and Solution Project, and just because of what you're saying about pressure, there's an amount of pressure, almost like a critical mass, that we can reach. And I really believe that, once we're combined forces, and I really believe in our, kind of collective energy, and that energy is contagious. So like, even hearing you talk right now about what you went through, and then how, just how it sparked you to learn more, and look at weather reports and weather patterns, like, that already has an effect on my life, because I look at weather patterns for growing season, but now I'm going to look at it more for, for storms and what it's doing to my neighborhood. And I think us having these type of conversations, this type of communication, is something that really gains a momentum. Like I said, well, I get pretty corny, just a heads up. But one of the things that I'm very proud of, and I took this from my elder Hernan, is that one of the things that he grows in the garden is friendship, right? So for
That's beautiful. That's not corny.
yes, that's something I believe in. And for me, one thing that I would love to grow more of is environmentally conscious and environmentally curious people. So people who come in there, but when they leave, they're thinking more about the world around them. Like they want to know more about that tree, or know more about why there are birds in this neighborhood, or know more about what this neighborhood used to be like, know more about the weather patterns and the amount of rainfall. So us talking like this, you using your platform, your voice, that amplifying this message is very contagious. It's I think of it too like how trees like can communicate through their roots, like sharing information, sharing water, just resources. I feel like we are a lot like that. Like I
Yeah.
know what I've gone through over here, my struggles, and how I was able to find some community and collaboration. And then I see people like you, and I'm like, oh, like there's more people out there in the world who also care and are passionate and want to make a change. And so I'm like, oh, like we're all of these trees out here that are growing and sharing and spreading information. And you know how big and strong a tree can get. So if we
Oh
all
yeah.
keep sharing and keep growing, then there's no policy, there's nothing in this world that we can't move or do.
Exactly, man. And I've been saying this since I've been, blessed enough to have a platform. I always say I don't want you to get interested in climate change when your house is underwater. I want it to happen,
Mm.
hopefully, before that ever happens. Um, and like I said, I don't wish that upon anybody. That's when it's a little too late. Um, so hopefully we could spark interest and inspire people while they have their homes and the world around them is calm and beautiful, because the planet is, it's the most beautiful thing in the world, and it is the only place where we could live. And we need to stop trying to leave this planet and heal this planet instead.
Yeah.
Um, it is a perfect place to live. It's the only place we can live. Um,
It's
and
amazing.
until we realize that we are all humans,
Mm-hmm.
we have a lot of work ahead of us. And again, I can't thank you enough, and I can't thank the Solutions Project for doing this. And what a beautiful way to launch Black Climate Week. And there are going to be so many fascinating stories coming out this week, and I urge everybody to stay tuned and to listen to all these stories. And you're going to get so inspired, and hopefully we're building the next climate activist on these lives and on these interactions. So thank you, Kofi. It is such a pleasure to.
Oh my God, thank you so much. And also, I'm only here because of my ancestors, because of my elders, and because like all the other Black environmentalists in Brooklyn. Shout out to my sister, Sustainable BK, Devon, all the gardens that are around me that show me love. Like this is what makes everything possible. And just a big thank you to you and everybody out there who's doing your part in your community. That matters. Keep doing that.
Yeah, thank you. And everybody, go follow Kofi and check out what he's doing. It's absolutely brilliant. And if you're in Bushwick, I hope you get a bunch of new customers, and just people could go there and learn and to see what beautiful work you're doing. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We had a lot of people, so hopefully we sparked some beautiful, beautiful things today. And thank you again, man. Have a beautiful day.
You too. Peace.
See ya.